Okay, young scholars, we are going to look at Chapter 2, Section 2, Percents and Fractions. Our I can statement is I can change a percent to a fraction and a fraction to a percent. All right, in order to write a percent as a fraction, you write it as a fraction with a denominator of 100. Then simplify. So to write a percent as a fraction, you write it as a fraction with a denominator of 100, then simplify. So looking at example number 1, it says, write 15% as a fraction in simplest form. Well, first of all, I need you to understand that 15% means 15 out of 100. So, in order to write 15% as a fraction, we would simply write it 15 out of 100. Well, if we wanted to look at that using a grid, a 10 by 10 grid with 100 squares, we would shade in 10 of them and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more. That shaded portion of that 100 is representative of 15%. Then of course you always want to simplify your fraction. So what number divides evenly into 15 and 100? The common factor is 5. So you reduce it or simplify it to 3/20. All right, let's look at example number 2. So let's write 8% as a fraction in simplest form. Well, remember that 8% means 8 out of 100. So when we write it as a fraction, we write it 8 hundredths. And if we were to shade in what 8% looks like on a hundreds grid, we would shade in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 out of 100 would be shaded in. That's what 8% looks like. Then of course we have to decide what is a common factor of 8 and 100, and it is 2. So this reduces to 4/50. All right, now let's look at changing a fraction to a percent. You can write fractions as percents. To write a fraction as a percent, you find an equivalent ratio with 100 as the denominator. All right, so the third example is write 1/4 as a percent. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out what ratio is equivalent to 1/4 when the denominator is 100. You're going to write equivalent ratios. Let's write that. Write equivalent ratios. So this goes back to what we did when we did work with ratios. What did I do to 4 to get 100? What did I do to 4 to get 100? I multiplied 25. So I'm going to do the same thing on the top. So 1 times 25 is 25 out of 100. And again, if I wanted to shade in what 25, actually I'm not done. I need to take the 25 hundredths and I'm changing that to 25%. Because remember that 25 hundredths, that's 25%. So if I wanted to shade that in, I would shade in 2 columns of 10. So there's 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is 25%. Okay, turn your paper over and let's look at example number 4. Write 1/2 as a percent. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to figure out what is an equivalent ratio to 1/2 so that the denominator is 100. So what did I do to 2 to get 50? I'm sorry, what did I do to 2 to get 100? I multiplied 50. So that's what I do on top. If I keep going with it, I know that the percent is out of 100, so it's easy. I can see that that is 50%. If I shaded it in, I would shade in 50 of 100. So one column is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And you guys can see that that looks like half, which was the original fraction. So 1/2 is 50%. All right, guys, I want you to work on the problems. I want you to come back and get a key when you're done and check your work. Good luck.